everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host, and I'm so glad that you're here. Today on the podcast, I chat with Bonnie Garvin, who created the Storytelling Lab. In the Storytelling Lab, Bonnie works with people for weeks at a time on unlocking their creativity. She is a writer and a fabulous writer, but she's not teaching people how to write. She's teaching them how to get out of their own way so that they can be creative. Our word of the week this week
It's the word of the week.
is learn. Who do you like to learn from? I love learning from people like Bonnie because not only is she really good at what she does, but you can tell that she loves it. She's passionate about it. And so when I need to learn something, those are the kinds of people that I gravitate towards. I want to listen to someone who's really good at what they do, but also loves it, because that's contagious. That passion and that excitement is contagious. And so I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with her. If you've ever been interested in learning how to do any kind of writing or any kind of creative anything in your life, I ask you to check her out. She has an online program, and just go look at her website and see what she does, because it's really cool. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation, and I thank you for being here. Have a great day. There you are. Hi,
Nice
how are
to meet
you?
you. Good, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Oh,
I
I'm
think
so
what you do is very cool.
Thank you. You know what? So this is a problem with video. Like then you
I know this is exactly what I do when
get
I'm trying.
hair.
Yeah.
At least I can start by my hair.
Well, this will be very chill. I promise. Very laid back. No expectations. Just, I like having conversations with people. I don't even think about an interview. I just really love talking to people. So I loved reading about all that you are doing. It's incredible. People like you just amaze me, who
Okay,
have
but
this
I was
gift.
never a person like me. I only like the kid. That's one of the reasons I feel like I'm qualified to speak about this, because I wasn't a person like me.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
I know what you mean. I know what you
yeah. I
mean.
mean, you really can change certain things,
Yes.
by yourself without,
Right.
it doesn't mean it takes effort, but
Yeah. Well, what you do just is so very cool to me, because I feel like I have so much to learn, and I am not a storyteller, and I'm not writing or anything, but in what I'm doing, I feel like I have so much to learn. And so I love learning from people like you who just have this gift to be able to
thank you.
help and encourage other people. So I know that you have written and produced lots and lots and lots of things. Is writing something that you always wanted to do? Is that what you
No.
knew you? No, it's not.
Literally never once had a fantasy of it, except I think
Yeah.
I was in, maybe this is so silly. We were talking about this the other night. I was in college, my first year, and I
Uh-huh.
read the book Valley of the Dolls. And it was
Yeah.
so bad that I went, oh, I could do this. And I like 10 pages and stopped. But that was literally never again. I mean, it never crossed
Wow.
my mind as a fantasy, because I would have thought, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. So it just isn't something, and that's the good news about it. Because
Yeah.
again, had I thought about it, I would have never done it. And
Right.
when you don't, if you don't necessarily think about something about doing it, it doesn't become that hard, because you have
Right.
built all this stuff up. So since it wasn't on my I'm afraid of list,
Yeah.
someone said it, I didn't particularly want to do it.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem something that was so daunting to me.
Right. What was the first thing that you wrote? Do you remember?
So the first thing I wrote was a play, and that's what really got me a career in terms of, really getting started and people taking me seriously. But again, I had been working as a publicist
Uh-huh.
at the theater and
Yeah.
at the theaters of a larger theater chain. And I really liked the job, but I didn't think that it was something I wanted to do forever. But I had no
Yeah.
idea what I wanted to do forever. So at
Yeah.
that time, I was in therapy, and one of the issues I had been working through was, what am I going to do with my life? Because I
Right.
never had any ambition.
Yeah.
It's really, and I thought, I mean, I'd been to college. I was relatively well read. I mean, I'm in the world, the world of the theater, around a lot of interesting. It's not like I was, under a rock my whole life.
Right.
I had, my husband used to always tease me about it. And he would sing this song that's way before your time, called Job.
Yeah.
Okay, go get a job. Because it was just became a joke, because
Right.
I just had, and so I felt like there was this fatal flaw in me. So when I was going to therapy, and one of the things I was dealing with was this, I decided that I was going to go back to school and take classes that sounded interesting to me.
Yeah.
Out the idea of going and getting a master's or having any objective other than was this fun. So I took a number of different classes, and one of them, or that I signed up for, was a class that I interpreted when you read, what the class is about
Hmm.
to be a journalism class. Because in those days, there was nothing online. You read these
Right.
journals that you go through and you pick out your class. And it,
Yeah.
okay, this class, blah, 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 blah. And it's a class where you'll study. And my interpretation of that was not doing fiction, it was something that had to do with journalism.
Yeah.
And I'd been peripherally around journalism for a while when I first got out of college. And I thought, well, maybe I'll take another journalism class. So I went back and I'm sitting in the class and the class starts. And as luck would have it, I was sitting in a circle, but they started with the person next to me all around the class. And each one of them were saying how they'd written a play or they had a play produced or they'd been in this festival. I'm thinking, what are they talking about? Why are we talking about plays? I'm in a journalism.
Yeah.
Finally, by the got to the last person, I realized, okay, this is not a journalism class. This is not
Yeah.
only a playwriting class, it's an advanced playwriting class.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'd never even once had a fantasy of writing. If I'd had writing anything, it wouldn't have been a play. So afterwards, I went up to the professor and I said, listen, you're not going to see me next week, and I need to tell you, but I want you to think, there was something. I said, and I gave her my whole little spiel that I gave you, and she convinced me to stay. And as I went home, I was so disgusted with myself, thinking, you're in therapy, you're paying money so that you're learning how to, not have to please everybody and do what you want.
Right.
No, you just got talked into something that you don't want to do. So, and the first thing we had to do was write a scene. And the scene, so I didn't know idea what a scene was, but I know that, how people talk because I talk, I listen to people. So I
Yeah.
thought, well, I'll just go home and put people in a situation and have them talk to each other,
Yeah.
have some conflict. So that was it. And that scene became became the last scene of a play that I wrote.
Wow.
And it was really amazing because I would go to class and everybody would bring in their work and I would
Yeah.
come home from work. I come home late because I worked for a theater. So sometimes it would be like 10, 11 o'clock at night because there'd be an
Yeah.
opening. And I'd come home and I'd stay up all night writing and there was no computer. It would be like cut and paste. And it was
Right.
so much fun and I loved it. And when I go to class, everybody would say, we want to hear Bonnie's. So it made me think, oh, okay. So I knew that they were enjoying it. And when
Yeah.
the class was over, it was over. And my professor said to me she wanted to talk to me. So I went to have a conversation with her and she said, I really think you should enter this play in this playwriting competition. And
Wow.
I didn't, so again, of course I wouldn't know that. And then I did, and I became a finalist. And it was when I
Oh my
got that
goodness.
letter that I suddenly went, I'm going to be a writer. Yeah,
Wow.
it was really kind of amazing. From then
That
on,
is
it was just,
amazing.
yeah, kind of a lot of magical thinking involved, but
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Well, you're clearly very talented in what you do to have, being able to done that. That's amazing to me. So
Yeah.
how did you get from that to the storytelling lab? I mean, obviously there was a made long career and things in between,
Yeah.
but how did it go from that to be able to teach people what you're doing?
Well, it's really funny because the one thing I never really wanted to do was be a teacher because that's what
Yeah.
I graduated. People from women from my generation, they were always going to do that, and I never wanted to do that. And
Yeah.
the interesting thing is, so teaching at the university is one thing because it's much more teacher-like because
Right.
they have certain criteria and it's in films
Sure.
very narrow. So
Yeah.
what I decided was during COVID. I had this idea because although I was teaching online, it was really miserable having my
Yeah.
classes. I mean, they were just not into it and it was murder. And I thought, I'll never continue teaching it. I need to do something else.
Yeah.
Came up with this idea about, well, working with adults. And as it turns out now, it's 99.9% women for reasons we can
Mhm.
talk about in a minute. But that would be just 6 weeks long. So I thought that's what COVID would be. 6 weeks would be back in the world. And
Yeah.
I'd focus it do I don't really believe that I'm going to teach you how to write. I mean, you're a literate grown-up adult. If you don't know how to write, you need to go back to first grade. So, but what I feel like I can help people with, not teach you, but show you how to get out of your own way. And that's really
Yeah.
what happens with people. So over 6 weeks, you don't just tap into writing, you tap into a much broader um, a much broader view of your voice because
Yeah.
we might tell a story through graphically, you might tell a story through music, you might because the other thing is writing isn't only just one thing that leads you to
Yeah.
becoming a writer. So an example was I recently had a man, which is really highly unusual, and he took the class and he was great. He was really a lot of fun, a great sense of humor, fit in with the other women. It was really a fun class. And
Yeah.
he wrote me the most beautiful note afterwards and how inspiring the class was. And he just went on and on and on. He said, and as a result of you, he said, I'm going to go back and live my dream of becoming an architect. I've applied to architecture school. No, that has nothing to do with writing.
Right. Right.
This is the thing that people get, we all, and believe me, I'm a very literal kind of a person. And
Yeah.
my own view has really taken it a while to kind of expand to understand that it isn't just one thing.
Yeah. That's
And
amazing.
writing can be so big. The other thing, I've never met anyone who went, I took this writing class 20 years ago and I'm really sorry. I mean, there's just not gonna,
Right.
there's
Right.
there's no downside to it at all.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And I think that even if you don't start writing, there's value in it. I have someone
Yeah.
else who recently, and I really take pride in these people because I'm not teaching them. I'm really just showing them how to get out of their way.
Sure.
So I feel like
Yeah.
it's all about them. So one of them just was her column on when she came to me, she was like in really terrible shape. Everything in her entire life had gone
Mm.
badly and sadly and terribly. And
Yeah.
now she was just chosen by Architectural Digest Mid East is one of the best columns and Substack for stylists.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Is that
That's
amazing?
incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible. So do you think that is probably the most common thing? You said that you just teach people how to get out of their own way. Is that like the biggest obstacle, do you think, for your students? No?
But it really is. No, yeah, I'm saying
Oh,
no.
it is. Yeah.
But it's really amazing. People
Yeah.
come to me come to the class. I mean, these are people with, really more educated than I am. I mean, one of my first class, I said to my husband, I think I'm intimidated by these people
Oh,
because
wow.
they're all have masters and PhDs, and then there's
Yeah.
me. So it doesn't. What you realize is everyone's the same. Everyone thinks they want to do something, they can't do it, they're not good enough, or they don't have the time. It's like a whole narrative that's been created. So even if someone comes out of it and they're not going to write a novel or whatever, I mean, they feel different in their work in general. I have somebody who
Yeah.
she and her sister, they live in Scotland and they had just started it's a very international class, as you can see,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
Her sister had started a juice company of natural juices. And one of the things that she was having trouble was they didn't want to spend a lot of money on PR. It was just she and her sister. They were
Right.
starting off, but she really needed to figure out how to write, how to present herself, so she did that. And now, she's not writing per se in that way, but she's doing
Right.
all the marketing and publicity for her own company, and
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. I keep writing her and say, I want
Wow.
to go on one of these spa trips they keep sending you on now.
Really? That's amazing. And
Yeah,
it's funny that you say all this just because I'm thinking I always wanted to be a writer. And I spent 6 months with a life coach who was a writing coach, but she was a certified life coach. And really, we didn't talk about my writing, but she was helping me with things that were going to help with my writing. And when I got finished with the 6 months, I started a podcast. So now that you say all that, it makes sense.
because maybe had you not worked with her, you might not have ever started that
I
podcast.
don't know that I would
You
have.
don't know
I
that you
don't
would
know
have,
that I
right?
would have. And I maybe go back to that one day, but what I really wanted to do was start the podcast, which is so funny to me. As you're telling these stories, I'm thinking that makes perfect sense. You're
It
just
does,
unlocking that creativity for
right?
people.
And you're
That-
communicating. Communicating is
yeah.
a form of creativity. I mean, the fact that
Yes.
you're not literally sitting and writing, we all get very literal about it, that you're not writing
Yeah.
words, and plus there are other kinds of words to write. I mean, are lyrics not words? Don't lyrics count as stories? Or all the
Right.
music we listen to, most of
Yeah.
90% are telling stories, right?
Yeah.
So if we kind of open up the idea of what a story is. It
Yeah.
also can help you want to engage and sort of figure that out for yourself and how to do that. I mean, whether
Sure.
it's work in marketing yourselves, knowing how to, how to do business in the world, right? What is
Yeah.
that story and how to getting other people to communicate that. I mean, there's just it's such a valuable tool that goes beyond just, are you
Right.
going to become a writer?
Right. So tell me, for people that don't know about your career, tell me some of the things that you've done before you started this storytelling lab, because you've done some pretty cool things.
Yeah, I really have. One of the things that I've always found as a writer is that I was kind of more looking back on it now when I look at the early
Hmm.
days of my career, is that I never really, even though I had a lot of representatives, like, a manager and an agent, all that kind of,
Right.
that particularly in my early years were very, very good.
Yeah.
I was always very aggressive about finding work for myself.
Yeah.
I would often option stories, or I was very aware of trying to, want to be in the movie and television business and selling to that.
Yeah.
As sort of I evolved more, it's a sort of change for me that I think that it's less about wanting to do things that are quote unquote saleable and popular and trying to find more of my own voice.
Right.
It's always a hard thing to do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a funny thing to do that when you start working you feel like, in a sense, you lose a part of yourself because it's
Hmm.
now much more collaborative and it takes on a whole other nature than when it's just you, writing something on your own.
Right. So can you tell me some of the things that you've done? Like some of the, I know you've written lots of plays and things for movies and TV shows and stuff like that.
Mainly I've done it's called long form television, which
Uh-huh.
is long form television is like, television movies of the week and things like that. I've written only one, I've written some other plays, but only one was produced, and that was several years
Yeah.
ago, which was a
Yeah.
fun, small playing group of women. We all did different ones within a general storyline
Oh,
of
neat.
through women moving through time. So that was very cool.
Yeah.
Um, and then I did one of the more interesting projects I did was a story that in the world we live in, I would never be able to do today.
Yeah.
Story about it. It's almost funny saying it now. Black prison uprising in the
Oh gosh.
1970s. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, don't you think of even then, okay,
Right.
20 years ago, it was an odd choice.
You're
Okay.
right.
But nonetheless, it could be a choice. And I did a really
Yeah.
good job and got nominated for stuff. And, I
That's
mean,
neat.
but it's, so that was one of the really cool things about that. And one of the things that's great about being a writer is
Hmm.
I, I'm not someone that's particularly drawn to writing about myself. I like
Right.
making stuff up
Yeah.
or telling it from someone out there that you tell me and I'll do something with it. Rather
Yeah.
than I'm not like I have no interest in writing a memoir at all.
Yeah.
Um, which is fine. I mean, not
Yeah.
everyone, if we all wanted to write memoirs, it would be pretty boring.
Right.
But it's so part of it is also finding out what are you drawn to? I mean, maybe you want
Yeah.
to write memoirs. And the only wrong with a memoir, I just don't want to write one. Or do you want to write a play? Or do you want to, at least when you're starting, so that you have some idea,
Yeah. So, who is your storytelling lab? What kind of a person is the best student to sign up for your storytelling lab? Like, what's the best idea for them?
I think that you mean like to make the fit or how to go about it.
The
But I'm not
fit, yeah, yeah,
I think it's for if you've had the fantasy, if you're working somewhere or not working somewhere, but have had a fantasy that you want to do something creative, and that's
yeah,
the person. And here's an either easier way to put it. Like when you were a kid, all of us were really creative. We just drew pictures all the time and we played and we
right,
did stuff. And you ran downstairs and you said to your mother, "Look at this picture I just drew." You're so proud of it, right? And
yeah,
she sticks it on the refrigerator and you run out and you go and do something else to the next thing. And
yeah,
but you didn't go down and say to her, "Look at this picture. What do you think of the color palette? What
right,
the composition of the painting? Is that working for you?" You didn't say that. You
right,
did it and moved on, right?
yeah,
So I'm looking for the person that wants to realizes that that kid that I just described is still there and it is forever.
yeah.
it's just buried under all the bullshit of insecurity and you can't do it and you've got to make a living. And besides, you don't have any time anywhere. And if you're a woman, then you really don't have any time because you have to
Right.
take care of everybody else. So how could you possibly have time? So it's
Right.
the person that is really willing to say, no, I'm going to carve out, like the class is 2 hours a week, my class. So it's
Okay.
a ridiculous thing online and time wise. And then it is at home, you either watch or read something. And
Yeah.
I actually started that because people were going to be home during COVID, and I thought
Mhm.
great way if you live with
Yeah.
someone to have a joint experience where afterwards you can discuss something.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that was the whole, so even, which is holds true today. So it's something that you do at home and you can do with people in your family. So if you want to use that as that time, it's
Yeah.
fine too. And that's sort of it. And then we do different things and experience, have different, kind of ways into telling a story that you might never have thought of before.
That's awesome. How long is the course when somebody signs up? How long is it?
So it's just 6 weeks. We meet once
Okay.
a week. There's only 6 people. So people, one of the other
Oh,
things
okay.
I've it's so nice that the groups that started 5 years ago now,
Yeah.
COVID, because it was at the
Yeah.
very beginning, are still in touch with each other,
Oh,
meet up
wow.
for coffee, if they all live in the same city. And sometimes
Yeah.
when they've gone into someone else's city, I just saw and had lunch with one of my very first students in Storytelling Lab who lives in
Oh,
England
wow.
here doing a promotion thing for the company she works for. So it's very warm and friendly and a really
Yeah.
safe place with amazing, amazing people. I mean, from Scotland, England, the United States, Canada. I mean, so that
That's
also
amazing.
it also makes it fun because you're getting perspectives of people that
Oh,
you wouldn't
sure.
necessarily come in contact with, even in a
Sure.
university setting, because if you're sitting in a real time space, there's only
Yeah.
people obviously that are in the same area you are.
Yeah. Did I see online that you were doing like a retreat or something? You were doing something like overseas,
Yes,
weren't you?
yes,
Yeah.
I did a receipt. I did a retreat last summer. I thought I would like stick my toe into it.
Yeah.
And it was really, really, really fun.
That's
I think people got a
great.
lot out of it. So yeah, I'm trying to work that out now. My venue just shifted a little, so I have to rethink it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was really it was really inspiring and it's really fun. It was a hard thing for me to do in the sense to get over the idea of going somewhere really nice, a gorgeous environment and writing. I mean, really,
Right.
because to be honest, I mean, if I was going to go do it, me, Bonnie Garvin, and spending money to go to Europe to do something, I want to be writing every day. I would be that person that everyone would hate because what do you mean we're going to bed? We're here to write.
Right.
So
That's too
I had
funny.
to really like find a way to not be a drill sergeant.
Right.
Oh my God, you're spending money. Why aren't you writing 24 hours a day?
That is too
Yeah.
funny. I bet that is just so fun though, going over there. And I'm sure your students just are like sponges with you, just getting to learn because you
Yeah.
can see how much passion you have for what you do. And so that is contagious. That's I love that. I love that. So what is your favorite thing about what you're doing?
My favorite thing is honestly watching other people change as a result of the influence of the class.
Yeah.
It really, I said this to my husband. I could never imagine getting so much satisfaction out of somebody else doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe normally it's all about you. I mean, it's not like I don't have
Right.
an ego, believe me. And I'm sure
Right.
that obviously there's ego involved even in being glad that someone else can do something. It's somehow my influence or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so gratifying. And now, particularly for the people that I see that I still am in contact with from the very early classes who stayed on with me because people liked it so much, I ended up creating a part two, where now
Oh,
people
wow.
in part two is longer and you actually work on something. You come in with
Okay.
an idea and we develop that over time. So
Yeah.
a lot of those people are still around. And
Yeah.
when I see how they've grown over 5 years. Oh my God, not only creatively, but kind of coming out of
Sure.
their shell and owning it. And
Yeah.
it's really amazing. I mean, it's even influenced their other friendships and their relationships with, vis-a-vis romantically. And yeah, it's kind of
Wow.
amazing.
That is incredible.
I think it's
I love
because you
that.
know what? I think it was Joan Didion that said, not me, sadly, that you write as a way of getting to figure out what you're thinking and kind of who you
Mm-hmm.
are. And I think that if you look at it that way, not writing
Yeah.
as a task, because I kind of look at us, this is sort of silly, but like inside of us, it's like we're a big container full of all this shit that everyone's piling in all the time. It's like taking the context, shaking them out.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really interesting. That's there, plucking it out because you don't even
Yeah.
know what's there. It's so filled with
Sure.
junk.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. I can say that about 2 o'clock in the morning. That's when I think about everything.
I know, right?
It is. It is. Gosh, I just love talking to you and I love hearing about all this. So if people want to sign up for your course, they can go to your website
Yep.
and
It's
it explains
Storytelling Lab
everything.
online.
Yeah.
It explains everything.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
what I do is I like to have a 15-minute conversation for free with everybody. Just
Okay.
I don't want to take people's money and them to think they're going to be there writing a novel and then they come in and they're not writing
Right. Yeah.
this. So I want everyone to feel like they know what they're getting and this is what they want and
Yeah.
what their expectation is. And that way it just also just feels more, again, because there's only six
Sure.
people, you don't want
Yeah.
someone to be way off the.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. Well, you've told me about just about everything. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to tell me about?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've just gone on and on and on about myself
No, I
all
love
the
it.
time.
You are the perfect kind of guest because
Oh, thank
you
you.
love what you're doing and you're excited about it and you tell me everything and I don't have to drag information out of you.
Yeah,
You are
that
the
must be
perfect
awful. I can imagine. No,
perfect.
that is not my problem. I don't think anything to drag anything out of me that way. But I will say one last thing.
Sure.
If you open up sort of one area of your life,
Mhm.
it really leads you to open up so many other ones. And I'll give you the other perfect example. Like 10 years ago, I
Sure.
started to paint. And when I was going to start to paint, I decided I'd read this book, which I recommend everyone read, which is a book written by Patti Smith, which won the
Mhm.
National Book Award called Just Kids. And it's about her relationship with the photographer, Robert Mapplethorpe, when both of them were nobodies and they went to New York and
Mm.
met and then wanted to be artists. And when I was done reading the book, it made me feel like, if she found a bottle cap, she'd go home and make something amazing with it.
Right.
I want to be that. I want to be a great artist, but I didn't know what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. I went through all the possible things you could do. And I didn't want to do this for this reason and that for that reason. And I came down to
Yeah.
one thing that was left that I hadn't done or tried was art. And my husband, I said to him, I'm going to take an art class. He said, and he looked at me and he was astonished and he's so supportive. I mean, he
Yeah.
moved to another state for my career. I mean, very supportive. He looked at me and he said, why do you want to do that? You're so good at it. And I said, no, that's the point. That's the entire point. I want to do it because I'm bad and I don't
Yeah.
care. I'm tired
Yeah.
of going and doing things and wanting to do them and being good. I want to go
Right.
and be bad. And I went and I was terrible. But what happened was because I liked it,
Mm-hmm.
I would do it and I really would practice. And I'd sit in bed and I would try and draw a finger. And I became obsessed with it. It was so much fun. So
Yeah.
along the way, I've become a quote unquote professional painter in that I guess if it means if you've sold stuff and had a showing,
Right.
I mean, and people will say, "Oh my God, you're a genius. You have this." Nothing, sadly, could be further from the truth. The
Right.
truth is, if you like something and you do it repeatedly, the chances are you're going to get
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
really like I'm reinventing the wheel here. People
Right.
you just don't think about it in those ways. I mean, so
Yeah.
that's what I feel like that's my mission is to sort of deconstruct the mythology of you can't,
Yeah.
because you can.
Yeah. And we need people like you to encourage us when we think we can't, to just give that little nudge and,
Yeah,
like you said,
absolutely. Well, what's
help
going to
people.
happen? When you go into a class, what's going to happen?
Right.
Like, what's the worst thing that's happen? You don't like it,
Right.
right? If you've never done
Yeah.
anything in your life you didn't like, I mean, come
If
on.
you're right.
So, I mean, it's we just imbue all these things.
Yeah.
And it's a way of keeping it from doing. At some level, I think unconsciously, it's a way to keep us from doing it because you're
Sure.
afraid to do it. And then if it's got all this other stuff, well, I can't. And nobody has time. I mean, who
Yeah.
has time? Do you have
Right.
time? You're really busy.
No.
I'm
Yeah.
really busy. But
Yeah.
people are busy. So you
Right.
make the time.
Yeah. I
Right.
appreciate you being a guest. I've just enjoyed it so much, and I look forward to seeing what all you do next.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed this too. You're a sweetheart. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You have a wonderful evening.
You too. Okay.
Okay. Bye bye.